Call this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? I think we can handle it under the commission comments or staff comments, but I think we don't say anything here about the preservation awards.
Oh,
Which are coming up in.
yeah, we have as an agenda item, discuss plans.
Oh,
Yeah, it's an agenda item.
okay.
Okay.
I went right
Yeah.
over it. Sorry.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved. We have very long minutes from our December 9th meeting. Probably the longest since I've been on here, but we did a lot of discussing. And are there any comments or changes to them? They were somewhat hard to follow, I thought, but you had to look back to make sure what we were discussing. But were there changes or additions to them? Is there a motion to approve them?
Move to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They are approved. Have a public forum, but there's no one here, so we'll skip right over that. Our next one is the review of the comprehensive historic preservation plan, which is a continuation from last month. And looking back, we got through a goal number 3 last time, so we pick up with talking about goal number 4, which is to educate the public concerning the value and benefit of historic preservation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Objective A under that is to increase the public awareness and support of historic preservation, and support for public historic preservation archival materials. The action step listed was to create and publish a list of historic preservation archival materials and their locations. And Ray, what would you say is the status of what has been done along that line?
Well, the Historic Society, which, what's the new name for the Historic Society?
Historic Museum.
Historic Museum. They're really the archive for much of this. So they do more of that certainly than anyone else does. And as far as making it available and helping people out that are looking for information, we have the surveys, but and of course we have files with certificates of appropriateness that people have obtained, and any files for designation of local historic landmarks or districts. But I don't know that we've created a list of anything. And if you're talking about archival materials and their locations, I'm not sure what the limit of that would be, because the Historic Museum, they've got more than we could put on a list, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know for sure what it's referring to as the historic preservation archival materials, but certainly a lot of the research type stuff would be there at the
Mhm.
what was the Historical Society.
Mhm.
You said that all the files for the certificate
Yeah.
applications
Mhm. And
those are within your office?
they're in our office. Yep.
Okay. I think there probably still is something to try to create some kind of a list that somebody could go to know where to find different things. So I think it's probably still appropriate to be keeping that in the action plan. Any other comments on that?
Well, is it archival materials, or is it also people that work with, historical items, like masonry repairs? Is it for that type of, or is it where to get, what is the materials? Is it literally just paper, like brochures and pamphlets? Is that what,
Well, that's the way I was reading it, but
because I take it more materially, like
okay.
actually where people can go for items that are archival, like if they want windows, old windows, kind of that.
I'm just going to look ahead and see if. That one might,
Because in B, I see, the tour brochures.
well,
That's not-
objective D under here is dissemination of historic preservation information as opposed to archival.
And
To
then
me,
that-
archival materials means records of the process.
Agreed.
Mhm.
So I would say
Does the
sort
museum,
of a supplier listing might be under
The other,
preservation information
okay.
more.
does the museum get this stuff?
You
I
mean
don't-
archives
Yeah.
for what we do?
I don't think
No,
current stuff.
we don't send it over there, but I don't know, they could download it from the city website if they want to. But,
They could, but
How far
Yeah,
back
I
does it
don't
go?
know that it's,
um,
I know a lot of, they have archives of a lot of building plans and such that the city has digitized and turned over the hard copy to the History Museum as an archive, but I don't think stuff from our committee has gone over there.
no. Like the agendas and minutes, we have those
Right.
as far back as they go.
I guess when I'm thinking of archival, I'm thinking of like when you were doing research and where would I go to find the letters and papers of, or the, more ephemeral kind of materials for archival. And I think some things may be at the Historic Museum, some things might be at ISU, I'm thinking.
Right.
And certainly the city records would all be here for doing
Mhm.
research. So if you're educating the public, I don't know if that would be something to say, if you're looking for such and such on
Well,
the
that's what I'm-
website, you know, you might check here, you know, that kind of a thing.
I think it would be helpful to have sort of a guide to, there's several actors in the archiving and
Right.
just giving
Mhm.
people an idea of what might be found where.
So when I read this, I understand the confusion now. When I read archival materials, I think it's archival materials in support of, for example, designation. So if I want to get my
Mhm.
house listed,
Okay.
Well, that's,
that was what I took.
That's
away
what I
from
was-
this.
mhm.
I mean, we don't maintain archival materials ourselves. The History Museum does, ISU does, the library does.
Mhm. That's
but-
true.
planning does keep the records of applications
city.
and stuff,
Yeah.
so.
So what should the wording be?
Well, do we need to make it more clear then, since it could
Right.
be read?
Does anybody have a proposal?
I hadn't thought of it.
I'm not sure knowing the whereabouts of the meeting minutes from this group speaks to educating the public about the value and benefit
Right.
of historic preservation.
No, I don't think it's the meeting, other than the record of approvals or disapprovals of applications for certification. But those, the easier place to find those would be to just go to planning and
Mhm.
look up by address, I'm assuming is how they'd be.
Yeah, we have the file names with the address and, you know, usually how the property is referred to, you know, like the Adams House or
Okay.
the Martin House.
Who keeps the, so if they wanted to read the National Register's landmark description papers, where would they go to get that?
I think most of those are now on the website.
The National Register.
Like when they did
Yeah.
Main Street,
Yeah.
where would they go
Yeah.
find that?
Well, they'd either go, I don't know if we have it on our website, but they would go to the SHPO or they go to the
Right.
Park Service, I think is archiving all their stuff at the Library of Congress now.
Okay,
it's online
okay.
there.
But I think the new website has the actual
does, yeah.
applications
Okay,
Or
for
parts of them, I
each
think.
of them.
so they could
Well,
read the description
okay.
of the buildings
Yeah.
and all of that, see the photos.
Yeah, if
may
you
not
want,
have
you
all.
want that detail, I mean, we do have that in our office too.
Okay,
I'm sure the State Historic
and
Preservation.
the state would, for
Office does.
sure, but in town, they're,
Yeah.
okay.
So do we want to add language to it or just keep it or?
We need to think about it a bit.
Okay. Let's go on.
Probably decide what archival material specifically is and say it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like Ted was saying, in support of designations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, no, there's some fairly sizable objectives here: promote and offer walking tours, lectures, workshops. I mean, is that something we're really in a position to do as a committee, or are we talking about the city of Ames? Or, I mean, who's offering walking tours?
Usually it's individual neighborhoods
Yeah.
that do, you know, we've had a couple.
This commission has done lectures and workshops in
Yeah,
the past years. And I don't know, we've been a co-sponsor on some, like the downtown walking tour, I think this commission was a partial sponsor of that.
you think with funding?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, I think I think there was some too.
Yeah, we funded. Definitely.
Okay.
You have it right there. Well, you are prepared.
I think with like the Old Town walking tour, that was funded through the tourism.
The grant, or through the Ames Convention and Visitors Bureau?
Yes. And historic preservation was, I don't think a funding sponsor, but was involved very much in the preparation of it. And so, I mean, to promote and offer is, again, very wide range of things.
These sound like more like actions of the museum.
Yeah, that was my feeling too.
And I don't know, if they were doing that, when was this written? In 2000 something?
It's about 10
Nine.
years.
2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we are in support of, since we have a entity that,
Well, at another point in this, it talked about funding them to be a resource,
yeah,
which in turn sort of implies
right.
that the city would be in part supporting them to accomplish some of these goals. But okay, just looking at action steps under that objective B, together public input detailing stories of Ames history, people, and properties using a city-provided online access or other methods. That one, I would think, very much is something the Historical Society does to a certain extent, and I don't see as something the gathering the input and stories, I don't see as a function of this commission. So I think if we're saying that's a goal of the historic preservation plan, it should be identified who is seen to be the actor responsible for it. Of those, the only one that our commission has done that I'm aware of is well, I guess we did say the commission was involved in the downtown one. But we have sponsored workshops targeting multiple audience with emphasis on commercial and residential property, architecture, property, incentives, and hands-on brick and mortar issues. Because when I first came on, or I guess it was right before I came on, there were workshops on redoing windows and stuff like that, which was the hands-on side of it. Since then, we've had workshops on the funding side with the tax incentives from the federal side. And we've talked about doing that last year and still have a chance this year.
So if we have a goal to educate, and it's more hands-on archival and walking tours and stuff, we have a goal two that's promote the preservation. I mean, is there something that we could kind of maybe finesse?
Yeah. It almost seems to me that we're talking about two different things. We're talking about educating about the history of Ames in the historic built environment, and we're talking about educating the citizen.
Technical skill.
Well, yeah, like the potentials of historic preservation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very different things to my mind. I think we should be promoting historic preservation, but I think we leave the promotion of history to the History Museum. I mean, I find this kind of impenetrable, this language, in what we're trying to do here. And I think we need to, yeah, I mean, I think to try to break it down in those terms would be helpful. Go back and look at all the objectives, all the goals, and think very clearly about what we do as a committee, and think very clearly about what the History Center does as a group.
Yeah, I would say this first action step of gathering input on stories is not really part of promoting historic preservation as much as just promoting interest in history, which might in turn generate interest in historical preservation, but it's really
I think you're spot on. I think what we need to do is maybe come up with some very clearly defined in achievable goals. Like, do we want more properties listed on the National Register? Do we want more locally designated properties? Do we want to promote the various financial incentives that are available to people that are listed in either of those ways? Instead of talking very broadly about trying to generate interest in history. I mean, I think that comes out of promoting the National Register. That comes out of promoting local landmarks.
Well, and that would
So-
tie into, jumping ahead a little bit, facilitating, strengthening partnerships in Goal 5 by
Mhm.
leaving the education piece to the history folks.
Well, the history education
Right,
versus the technical
right,
preservation education.
right. That would strengthen partnerships quite a bit.
So I guess maybe since we aren't coming up with an actual, we'll just say that we feel we should come back to these and split it out with this plan and the responsibility of this commission being focused on the historic preservation side of things. Okay, objective C, to utilize the website and online presence. The action step listed is to maintain a computerized list of survey materials for city staff and others to consult in planning processes. I think we've, within the last year, quite a bit beefed up the website. And I don't know that it specifically addresses a list of survey materials, but we do now have the pictures and documentation of the designated properties, which for the most part wasn't there before. And I guess still the survey materials would be an appropriate as a resource for historic preservation, probably getting some kind of section of the website that directs people to where to find those, if not actually getting them out there, would be an appropriate thing to have on our website. And I think some of the material that was in one of the chapters of the plan, just getting that sort of listing of work that's been done previously for different neighborhoods would be an appropriate thing to get out on the website. Second action step listed there, develop and maintain an online instructional sheet to explain correct methods to record information concerning historic properties and an online form for that information. I think we've talked about sort of leading people into that process in a more graphic method, but I'm not,
Develop and maintain to explain correct methods to record information. Not sure I know what that, is that asking, is that prompting property owners for information about their building if they want to get it listed? Is that,
Yeah, it sounds like a self-survey.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
yeah, I think it's, yeah, it's a resource to people that want to tell them how to.
Do their house research.
Those site sheets that we have on individual properties, you think that's what it's referring to?
That might be.
Yeah, I'm not, except this sounds like it's telling them how to do a site sheet rather than
Yeah,
telling, okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be able to say we have that on there now.
Nope.
And I guess, how do other people feel if the website should take them to that level? Or just encourage people to work with the city staff or as a resource?
So my thought is that this is for a homeowner who couldn't find their own property on an existing survey, that they can submit their home information for a future survey? That's what I'm just,
Yeah, as it's written, it doesn't really make sense.
Ted, you had some knowledge of other cities' websites. Is
Yeah,
this
I'm trying to,
some
well, I'm
that-
trying to figure out what we were getting at here.
Okay.
I'm sure it made
Mhm.
sense at the time,
At the
but
time.
yeah. Ray, when was this written? Was this is 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, 2009.
Yeah. I think even 10 years ago, I mean, obviously the City of Ames had an online presence, but it wasn't what it was today.
Mm-mm.
I don't know. I mean, I can only begin to guess what they're trying to get at here. I think it is, I want to get my property listed. How do I do it? What's the
Mhm.
first step in this process?
Mhm.
Filling out some sort of survey form, giving the city some baseline information about the property, and then we see where we go from there. But I think clearly it has to be reworded. I'm just,
Yeah.
it lost for words right now how to reword it. But
What you just said sounded good.
no, thank you.
Well, it's going to be in the minutes.
See, I'm not even sure that, I mean, if we go back up to the goal number that we're on 4, it's educate the public. I'm not sure that's education. I don't know where that would fit, but that seems to me maybe objective D, continue to designate local historic districts, landmarks.
Fit better under there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're interested in having your property listed. Here's the first step in this lengthy process. And that's not really, unless I'm misreading it completely, I mean, that's not an education thing. And utilizing the website is clearly about education. But I think we could probably distill these action steps down to just maybe even one,
Mhm.
saying, continue to use the website, to educate the population about the benefits of historic preservation, what it means for them as property owners, the benefits of it, of designation, and then leave it at that. Or maybe include another action step that so something to the effect that include nominations as they're listed. So the new downtown one should be on the website. All the previous ones should be on the website.
What's it, like the next action step to provide information concerning grants and aid and other funding sources. The website does address that. I don't know if it accomplishes it fully as was but we do talk some about what funding sources may be available on the website, but
It's been a little while since I've looked at the website, but having looked at other cities' websites, I think this is where we tend to undersell ourselves a little bit. There are people that are going to be interested in preservation just because they like history, or a building is meaningful to them, or their town is meaningful to them. But for a lot of people, it's because of those financial incentives that are tied to listing.
Yeah.
And I think we should be promoting that front and center. I think that's got to be, brashly indicated on the preservation page. You're on the National Register, you're contributing property, you're income producing, potentially you have historic rehabilitation tax credits available to you. Same thing with the state credits. Same thing with any city programs. Like isn't the urban revitalization grant, does that apply to historic buildings too?
There's certain areas,
Yeah,
but it doesn't apply to the historic district.
right.
Yeah.
So I think there's a way that if nothing else, we should be selling incentives like nothing else. If our goal is to, at the end of the day, is to preserve the historic building stock of Ames, that's the first step in that process, I think.
and I think the last action step there, include the applications, I think, as I remember it, they are portions of them. The descriptive parts are out there on the website, which I'm guessing is primarily what this would have been talking about. But I mean, there are a lot of forms.
Oh, yeah.
as
Yep, those
part of it,
applications are on the website.
So that is a check for having been accomplished, but it's something that would be ongoing if there's additional ones. I mean, it's appropriate to keep it as an action step.
I think, don't recall what it looks like now, and I know that, is it Eloise that was working on this before?
Yes.
I know she did a good job of
Yeah.
pulling out some of the information and distilling it on the website. And I think we need to continue to do that because links to PDFs or nominations, I mean, the nominations themselves are not very, compelling reading. I think what we need to do is pull out key things and distill those on the website to make them more readable. So I would say continue to do what we were doing in that action step, certainly as new properties are listed, but also as city staff have time to go into the documents and pull out meaningful narratives.
We'll go on to objective D under goal 4. To facilitate the dissemination of historic preservation information with 2 action steps. First is to identify and designate appropriate public access site or sites for preservation information. And the second one's to gather historic preservation information and resource material and provide public access for their use.
Seems like we already addressed
Yeah, I
that
think
in the
we
other
should-
one.
yeah, I would say jettison objective D altogether.
Okay.
We're already taking care of that under objective C.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to goal number 5. Facilitate and strengthen preservation partnerships among municipal, county, state, and federal government agencies, including Iowa State University, Ames Historical Society, or History Museum now, and local school districts. So it's to facilitate and strengthen partnerships. Objective A is to open communication channels among all interested parties to identify common interests and concerns, to explore areas of mutual benefit, and to share historical data and research. It has a boatload of action steps. Okay. 7, to collaborate with other historic preservation commissions, historical societies, and related groups to promote common interests. And I think we do at the local level work with the Historical Society and certainly with the ISU on things. I think going to the forum conferences would be working with other historical preservation commissions around the state or even at the national level. The one down in Des Moines last year gave people a chance to really hear about how it's being handled in other parts of the country. And so I think it's appropriate. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I think
just as a general item to share stories and such strategies, maybe.
we here and elsewhere we need to obviously change the name of Ames Historical Society to the new name, but I'd be inclined to expand the groups that we want to facilitate and strengthen our partnerships with. I think we tend to overlook developers in this process, and developers, possibly more than anyone else, can make a decision about whether or not a building stays or whether or not the integrity of the building remains intact. And I think working with developers is critical. So I'd like to see that put in there as a goal, in addition to, homeowners and government agencies. And if this is the right place, I guess we're talking about government here, though, aren't we?
All the examples given, but that other side of it is not really addressed.
Yeah,
that I can see.
I searched for developer in this document, and William Page mentions it in some of the historical content, but I think partnering with developers is, in addition to homeowners, is crucial. So if we can get it in there somewhere, I think that's really important.
Sounds good.
Okay, the second action step is to establish an annual joint session between Ames Planning and Zoning Commission and Ames Historical Preservation Commission to review authority, responsibility, and procedures. I know that's not happening now. Has that been
I can think of one time they've met, but it's been a while. And the commission, I mean, the tie-in zoning regulations, because historic preservation, chapter 31, that's really zoning regulations as well as chapter 29 that the Planning and Zoning Commission deals with all the time. But, you know, you did meet with the city council. It seems to me that meeting with the city council is probably a higher priority. You know, the commission, they perform a valuable function, but they make a recommendation to the city council. So, you know, it wouldn't be anything wrong with meeting with the commission, but you know, there's probably less tie-in with them than there is with the city council.
I'm wondering if the annual joints session should be to do it on a case-by-case basis or something. But I'm not sure there's enough commonality to
Yeah, on an annual
be an
basis,
annual
probably
meeting
not,
basis.
you know, maybe that's a good change as needed.
And the purpose would be to discover overlapping responsibilities then,
Yeah.
which I don't recall coming up. So,
It-
yeah.
Yeah, there is a question on some things, which comes first, whether getting the certificate of necessity or getting a rezoning. But part of that is the certificates we issue are only in the local historic district
Right.
and, or with locally designated historic properties.
Do we want to add
Yeah.
then the city council too then as needed, or do we want to do that annually?
I think it'd be good annually with the city council, but that's really their call.
Does the council meet with the various commissions on a regular basis?
Not annually.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually, but I think when they met with the Historic Preservation Commission, they were meeting with some others too. And so, you know, certainly wouldn't be anything wrong with meeting with them annually, but to kind of make sure you're on the same page.
I like the idea of an annual meeting too,
Okay.
if you guys do. I mean,
Yeah.
But I suppose as needed.
Keep in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the problems that a lot of communities have where there
Yeah.
are rampant demolitions and buildings being, you know, significantly altered. It's a pretty stable community in
Mhm.
terms of preservation, but you know, for example, when you were doing when the city was doing the gateway rezoning, I know there was very little discussion of the Martin House, which is one of 2 local landmarks that we have here. And that would have been an opportunity for us to say, look, you need to be mindful of this property. It's significant,
Right.
tremendously significant. It's right in the heart of this rezoning. So be cognizant of that. I don't think we ever weighed in on it.
So I'd say that'd be a added action step for an annual meeting with council, since we're downgrading the one with Planning and Zoning Commission to as needed.
Mhm.
We'll go to the next action step and to encourage county, state, and federal agencies to partner with municipal agencies in preservation efforts to increase public awareness of the history of Ames.
Is this where we'd have the developers? Say in addition to developers and homeowners, or?
Number
Well,
6. Number
Again, the way it's worded, the partnering is to increase public awareness of the history. And while
Right.
in one sense, that's a goal of historic preservation overall,
Mhm.
it seems like that puts a very narrow focus on the partnering.
It makes me,
I,
go ahead.
I'll let you.
I was just thinking that the similarity between the first action step and then
Right.
the other one.
I'm sorry, which two?
Well, the first
first and
action,
the
step,
third.
it may, yeah, the first and the third one. I was going to say, looks like more, the developers would be better in the first one, I think.
You mean to collaborate with other?
Right, to collaborate, and collaboration.
Promote common interests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if we go back up to I
The
think I
goal.
misspoke. The goal is very specific to
Right.
governmental agencies and some.
Yeah, what I was going to say on action step 3 is I would just knock out the to increase public awareness of the history of Ames
Okay.
and to encourage partnering on preservation efforts.
Yeah. I would
That's
Oh, okay.
better.
Yeah. Can I make a request, Ray? When we redo this document, can we number the action steps too, just so we can refer back to them?
I think that'd be helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when it's one thing when there's 2 of them, but
Yeah.
when there's. Okay, number 4 on here is to utilize resources available through Iowa Main Street program. And I'm not,
It's broad. I mean,
yeah, I mean.
fair enough. I mean, I'm okay with that one. I mean, it's make use of Iowa Main Street. It's a great resource. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's really an action step, but I would be inclined to leave it.
Okay.
Um,
Anybody else? We'll go to the next one. Communicate with Iowa State University regarding historic resources throughout the community. I think it's something that's done routinely. But again, it's a very broad, just
Yeah.
communicating with them.
I think instead of communicate, I know we've overused it here, but collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know that the university isn't beholden to the laws that apply to the rest of the city, but I think there's always room for more collaboration between the city and the university. And we just read about that in the newspaper the other day, right? The
Right.
council members wanting to be more of a presence on campus, working with students. And
Yeah, I'd go with the collaboration, but I think it's regarding historic preservation efforts or something rather than regarding
yeah,
resources.
I think that's good. Yeah. So collaborate with Iowa State University regarding historic preservation within the community.
The next one is collaborate with other Iowa communities and other interested parties to establish a Lincoln Highway Historic Conservation Corridor across the state of Iowa. And that, I think, has
Pretty
been
good
some
I
that's
thought, yeah.
been accomplished. So if nothing else, I don't think it'd be to establish it.
Maintain.
It'd be to maintain it or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be collaborate with other communities, not interested parties. Maybe collaborate with the group, the group over here in Boone. um, that's been involved with the Lincoln Highway
Okay.
project. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but
To collaborate with them for what?
well, I think on maybe promotion of the Lincoln
Promoting
Highway,
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Identification of Lincoln Highway related resources. I mean, Martin House, Lincoln Highway marker on the near the Iowa State Center. I mean, there are a lot of little odds and ends that are potentially historically significant.
The next one is to partner with Iowa State University to maintain historical character of Campustown while encouraging its development as a commercial and cultural center.
And that's this,
Whoops.
that's the campus plan, all right?
Mhm.
That's
Sounds like it.
The Action
to
Association.
replace Campustown.
Yeah.
What actions item are we on?
The bottom one.
The bottom.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
should
whoops.
be stricken.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know how much is left there now.
The clock tower.
Yeah, that's isn't the clock tower from the early 2000s or something?
Yeah.
That was
And
it.
there's,
No, it was there in the 90s.
90s.
Yeah.
That's getting historic.
Yeah, they were climbing up there in Visha back then.
Wow.
So,
I found the group that in Boone that has done a lot of work on Lincoln Highway. It's Prairie Rivers of Iowa. It's a nonprofit.
So they would be covered under that action step under other interested parties, I guess,
Yeah.
but.
So the Lincoln Highway Heritage Byway Coordinator over there is Janice Gammon. She's really good. She'd be somebody to reach out to.
What do we feel should be said about Campustown?
We could
just
add,
get rid of it.
Yeah, we could add what's left between maintain and the. So partner with Iowa State University to maintain what's left of the historic character. of
What remains?
Yeah. I would, yeah.
Well, there are historic features. There are there's the corridor of the
Unwell.
interurban tracks or streetcar
Mm.
that come through there that could be highlighted with some signage or something, because most people, I don't think, have any idea why there's that diagonal
Yeah,
through there.
yeah.
So I think there is an opportunity to pull out some historic
Yeah.
features, but I don't think historic character is all that much.
There's some remnants for sure. They're the old houses in back of the commercial buildings on Welch and a few other odds and ends, but
Pizza Pit's been there a long time.
yeah. My son works there. He's working there right now.
Well, the churches are still there.
Size Roost, they've been there forever too.
What happened?
Size Roost.
Oh yeah. You know that
Campus, yeah, what's the print shop on the corner.
Oh yeah, yeah. So maybe we just leave it. I mean, there is some character left.
How long has the Campus Town Action Association been around?
quite a while.
Has it been?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when it was formed, but it's been around for several years.
How about my problem is with just saying to maintain it, and I think that's maybe to promote remaining aspects of the historic.
Yeah.
And would be partnering with, more specifically, the Campus Town Action Association rather than just broadly ISD?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they should be added to that.
Yeah.
Goal number 5 is strengthening partnerships, so just add them on there.
Oh, okay, yeah, CAA.
It is a hard one. The Historical Society has the entry block from the Chaplain Building in their collection now.
Yeah.
Very large piece of concrete, but there's a lot that has disappeared. Go on to objective D, to develop timely notification and review comment process for proposed reuse, rehabilitation, or demolition of historic resources.
I think that's in place. Yeah, we've got the procedures and the forms and everything.
What triggers that?
An application, for designation of a local historic landmark or an historic district, or, someone's proposing to demolish an historic resource, then,
But that's only if
Yep.
it's a designated
Yeah.
property, right? Or,
not necessarily like in there's an overlay, a zoning overlay in the East University area where the fraternities and sororities are, that if you're going to demolish one of those buildings, you have to get approval from the city council first to do that.
But not the HPC. Or
Oh.
well, they're not going to get approval. for
Yeah,
this, but-
yeah.
But the council
I
gets
mean,
right.
yeah, the council could ask for your input, yeah, certainly. But they have to get approval from the city council for that. And like the Roosevelt, former Roosevelt School, there was the adaptive reuse, there's procedures they have to follow to get approval for that. They came to the commission, they went to the planning and zoning commission, city council to get that approved. So there's processes and procedures in place for that.
I guess,
Were you thinking about,
I was thinking about something that would help to select things that would trigger that, because when you mentioned the Roosevelt, I don't think that wasn't a local historic landmark or anything.
No, it was on the National Register.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah.
How about the Crawford, was that?
that's not listed though.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so.
So did that go through a similar process, or?
They did go through an adaptive reuse approval process. Yeah.
Okay. And what brought that up, since it wasn't a designated
The-
property?
Because it had some historic value. That's there's different criteria you can use for adaptive reuse. One of them is, that it's an historic property. And they
It was, I think
could
Crawford-
show,
Yeah, Crawford was identified in one of the surveys, I think, as
Okay.
potentially historic.
Yeah.
Is that what the,
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be listed.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if the HPC wants to have a heavier hand in this process, then what we would probably want to do is ask to see requests, demolition requests, alteration requests for the buildings that are listed, but also the ones that were identified in the surveys.
Okay.
That would require probably that's not just something I think the city, a responsibility the city blithely gives to us. And that has to be built into the process, I think. It's not just something
Yeah.
we can include here as an action step.
Mhm.
But other cities do that. I mean, if that's something that we would, if we want to have more of a hand in
Yeah.
what's preserved in Ames, we could certainly go down that path.
Well, I think that's part of, I mean, this isn't specifically saying these are things we're going to accomplish because the city council basically adopted this plan. So in essence, this is a goal of the city council or a objective or action step. And they decide how it's going to be accomplished or, but I guess to me, that's one that could definitely be looked at more.
For more involvement by the commission?
For,
See?
for possibly more involvement and for more spelling out. I mean, maybe it's part of a reason to do more survey work.
I think trying to play this out in my mind, there was an old, I think a fraternity, maybe it was a sorority in Campus Town that was recently demolished. I don't remember which one it was. Do you remember that, Ray? It was kind of at that intersection near that little pocket park.
You said it for fraternity?
It was, or sorority, I can't remember which one, but now,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
just north of there.
had that been identified in the surveys as potentially historic, and then it comes to us and we're charged with making a decision about whether or not this is, going to be an adverse, the demolition is going to be an adverse effect on the property. We don't have any other, how do we generate additional information so we can make that decision? We don't have that necessarily. And
Right.
so, in the absence of a way to get that information to make an informed decision, I don't know if we really, at this point anyway, want to go down that road. That makes sense?
Yeah.
The surveys are old too. I mean, if we were to go back and look at the surveys that Will Page did, I mean, a lot of that stuff is probably no longer eligible, may
Getting older
not
now.
even be extant. And new things will be
Yeah.
potentially eligible. So I think it's certainly something that we should consider down the road, but I don't know if we're in a position to play a bigger role at this point. Argued against my first point.
So are you saying it shouldn't be there or?
I don't know.
I mean, right now, it doesn't say it's an
Yeah.
approval process at all. It's a review comment.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily say it's this commission doing it. What I'm hearing is that there is some process. I don't know that I'm just wondering if it's consistently triggered or,
Well, the COA is that
Yeah.
trigger, right? I mean, if there's a property in the district and somebody wants to change windows or
Well,
rip off a tourist, then
in-
it comes to us.
with a designated
Yeah.
historic district
Right.
or a designated, locally designated historic landmark, that would be the case. But for the ones like we're talking the Crawford or stuff that are outside the district and they are not at this point designated, but you're saying that based on a survey that identified as a potential,
And that serves as evidence of historic value.
and that, but who does that? Is that something staff does or is that something,
The survey?
no, the
Determines importance.
the watching for applications and comparing them to the survey?
Well, when the developer comes forward with the proposal for adaptive reuse, they have to prove their case to the city council. That it has historic value or it has economic value. There's another one.
And I'm thinking, okay, that's for historic reuse where they put that in there
Mhm.
because they're identifying it as meeting that. But for demolition, if,
Oh, yeah, for demolition.
had there just been somebody came in with a proposal to demolish the Crawford,
Oh, yeah,
Who would've-
you know, there-
who would have,
yeah, there's
Put
not
that
a process
through.
to really in place that we have to stop that.
and that's where I think
Mhm.
there should be somebody should be watching for that kind of thing as well, just to alert the public. And there is no requirement for a hearing or anything. But I think there should be some kind of notification or,
Yeah, there's not a process in place that they have to get notification. And some of those things happen even before we know they're going to happen. Like years ago, the original depot for Ames was demolished. And, we didn't know what was going to happen. One day it was demolished. It was just a small building along the tracks near
Yeah.
Duff.
Mhm.
And some people knew what it
And it
was.
it had
Yeah.
new siding on it, so people had no idea what it was.
Yep, yeah, probably most people didn't. But it wasn't designated either.
I just feel that's something that needs to be developed, and maybe I would keep it. I don't know if there's anything it's very open right now. Just a process of notification and review comment.
Could we add an action step, something to the effect of explore additional ways that the HPC can be involved in the review of potentially eligible historic properties in Ames? And that's, I think, getting at what you're saying. Again, I'm a little concerned about where that leaves us when we're presented with that information. We have no ready means to educate ourselves. Short of going and doing the research, and I don't know if any of us have the time to do that, or the city staff has the time to do that. But certainly something we could explore.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it could even be trying to determine what the process is for a demolition and what the where a triggering step would be.
They need a demolition permit from the inspections office.
And what kind of review goes,
But we don't, unless it happens to be in that East University overlay district or in the Old Town Historic District or one of the local historic landmarks, we don't see it.
okay.
So what you're saying
That's
is
what
that
I'm saying.
if we could look at
somehow there needs to be
The
some
trigger.
kind of notification or some kind of process that somebody looks and raises the question.
Yeah, so in this same document that we're looking at here, we have all of Will Page's potential districts, the Ross Road District, South Campus
12
District.
of them or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as to make life easier, we could just say, within these areas,
These are future ones or.
yeah, or future ones.
Yeah.
We'd like to have, the ability to review demolitions and alterations but again, that data is dated now. Do we, in any of the goals, do we call out specifically the need to undertake new surveys or redo old ones?
I don't think so.
We had in here to work with the neighborhoods and see if they're interested in pursuing an updating or whatever, but we don't have anywhere to look at those again ourselves or to have that done.
I guess we do have objective B and goal 3, continue to improve Ames inventories of historic properties through reconnaissance and intensive historical, architectural, and archaeological surveys.
Mhm.
Are these goals in order of importance?
No,
No.
no.
Could I suggest, I don't want to get bogged down on things that we've already talked about, but this just occurred to me. Under objective B, goal 3, talk about action step identifying and prioritizing survey areas, talk about publicizing our results. I'd like to add an action step whereby we encourage the city maybe to use crowdsourced data to solicit information from members of the public. I think I've mentioned in these meetings before that larger cities around the U.S. Are coming to terms with the realization that surveys are expensive, surveys are time consuming, yet you have all these members of the public that can and are willing oftentimes to weigh in on what they think is historic. I think that's worth exploring. Putting the burden of survey on the citizens of Ames. I mean, it's the citizens of Ames. It's their properties, it's their history, it's their heritage. Try to get direct information from them as opposed to via a consultant, which costs. Would you guys?
To encourage that, not to.
Yeah, I mean,
that substitute.
Yeah,
Or not to say that would be the only source.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
think, but I think we can certainly tap into the expertise of locals. I mean, in the Old Town District, there are probably lots of people that would be happy to walk the neighborhood, see where changes have occurred, maybe walk the peripheral areas and see where the district might be expanded, take photos, submit them to the city and provide some information that would make our jobs easier, make the city's job easier.
Okay, we'll go back to 5C. To integrate the historic preservation plan with other priorities of the city council. And the first action step is to review the comprehensive historic preservation plan report and determine priorities as necessary, but not more frequently than once each year.
That hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, in a sense, that could be said that what we're accomplishing now,
Mhm.
and it's been 10 years. It has been addressed in part previously, but I think this is the first time going through it completely. But it's certainly not more frequency than one. When I first read that, I thought it said at least once each year, and
Oh, boy.
Well,
so it's basically saying don't reopen it every couple months. But I don't see a problem with what it is there. I think there could be a minimum. But I don't know, It surprises me that it's stated this way because most plans do set an intended cycle and not saying not more frequently than once a year. I don't know if they, at the time, had concerns that somebody was going to reopen it right away or.
Kind of sounds like it.
It does. I know with long-range plans, it's usually the intent that it be looked at least every 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the comp plan's not going to change for another 20 years, right, after we.
There'll probably be some, I mean, there'll be updates,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, not completely redone
Right.
for a while.
Well, but usually people don't consider that it has to be redone, but it has to be reviewed and a determination made whether it is still in a good enough shape to not be redone.
I think we just get rid of everything after as necessary.
Yeah.
I don't think we're all chomping at the bit to do this more than once a year.
That's a good idea. Second step is to obtain approval from the city council for priorities determined by the commission following each review of the historic plan report. And I would assume that anything we come up with does go back to them, so.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think that's pretty much just stating where the authority is.
Mhm.
Is there anything else? I think it would be possible to put the meeting with the city council on a regular basis or something, or if we want to say annually, this would be an appropriate place to put that, although this is strictly dealing with the plan. I guess the other could be a broader
Broader.
meeting.
Mhm.
Any other changes? We'll go to goal 6. Promote the economic development and vitality of the city through historic preservation. Objective A, assess the impacts of new development on the historic character of existing neighborhoods, commercial districts, and archaeological resources. Under that, 2 action steps. Develop criteria to determine which type of new development projects should be assessed. And development, a second step is to develop an assessment process. This,
Talking about
Talks
economic
about-
impacts, right?
Mhm.
yeah, and this talks about historic character of existing neighborhoods, districts, and archaeological resources, doesn't really limit it to designated properties or designated district. Seems to say it would be done
Yeah.
for all areas, but
You know, there's no shortage of research out there that speaks to the issue of economic impacts, historic preservation. I don't know if the city of Ames needs another one. I mean, we can go to any number of similar communities and pull out the reports that show that there are positive impacts associated with historic preservation. I don't know if we need to be assessing those things here and developing criteria, and developing an assessment process. I'd say maybe promote the economic benefits of historic preservation. Yay. nay?
I would agree that the fact that it's it seems to be targeting everything. It's not limited to the historic districts locally or.
Yeah. So maybe what we could say is promote the economic benefits of historic rehabilitation for commercial and residential property owners, and then maybe have another action step that's promote the benefits through heritage tourism, which is more of a citywide thing.
And you'd substitute that for objective
Yeah.
A?
I don't know. Now that you said what you said, I'm second guessing what I said. Ray, does the city planning department engage in activities like placemaking and things that capture preservation work but is broader than preservation? I mean, when we argue for the city of Ames as a livable, workable, pleasant place for new businesses, new residents, I mean, how does the city planning department justify those things? I mean, do we talk about quality of life issues? Do you have measures along those lines? I mean, because preservation is very much wrapped up in that.
Yeah. I don't, I can't think of, a case where we've gotten into that to the degree that you're talking about. There have been charrettes for certain projects that the placemaking comes more into play, and we talk about how we can how that fits with the surrounding properties. Like there was a charrette for a new public area for downtown, and there were lots of different ideas and things to kind of fit with the character of downtown and yet offer something new. It ended up not going anywhere, but doesn't happen with every project.
Okay. What are we trying to say in this goal?
Well,
Promote the economic development and vitality of the city. You're right. It's not just the historic districts or the listed properties through historic preservation. Thinking about that more, maybe it is what can historic preservation do for the city as a whole? Is that your read of it?
yeah.
Okay.
I just am not sure objective A is I agree with you that just coming up with an assessment tool or a study I think in a sense it makes the point that it's not just the designated areas that have historic character that might contribute, but I don't think creating an assessment process is really.
What if we were to promote the potential of historic preservation to enhance economic development and the quality of life in Ames? Does that get to what we're trying to say here? I mean, so when I read this and when I try to think about this kind of on the ground in the real world, I think, well, what is Ames doing insofar as preservation is concerned, insofar as our historic resources are concerned? How are we promoting that to try to attract new residents? How do we promote the historic neighborhoods and the historic buildings as a way of retaining students after they graduate from ISU? How do we attract businesses who may have employees that are in New York and or wherever, and perhaps like the downtown here? I mean, I know it's probably a bit of a stretch, but how can preservation be used to enhance the quality of life in Ames? Maybe we need to just come back to this one.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah,
Well, I really think that objective A
it's not.
doesn't fit that well in the promotion. Some of these other, let's go to the other objectives and then come back to A. Objective B listed is to encourage the use and adaptive reuse of existing public and private buildings. Again, it doesn't say historic, so it's basically just don't tear it down. The action steps listed are to work with Main Street, Iowa, and Main Street Cultural and Entertainment District to maintain the historical character of downtown Ames while encouraging its development as a commercial and cultural center. Second one is to develop design pattern books to illustrate how adopted design guidelines can be applied. And third one is to showcase notable adaptive reuse projects through the media. And fourth is to consider Campustown as a potential candidate for the Urban Neighborhood Main Street District program of Main Street, Iowa. My question with action step 2 in there would be, I'm not sure, it says to develop design pattern books to illustrate how adopted design guidelines can be applied. Since this isn't talking about designated districts or anything, I'm not sure what they mean by adopted design guidelines.
Adaptive reuse.
So what?
Adaptive reuse guidelines. Showcase
No.
notable, oh wait, I'm
It
in the
says
wrong one.
adopt, second action step. It wants design pattern books based on adopted design guidelines. And I'm not sure what it's meaning by that for the community as a whole.
So what they're saying there is, Main Street, a lot of what so Tim Reinders we were talking about earlier, they have designers at Main Street that go out to communities and, work with those communities to show how, the physical fabric of the downtown could be enhanced, based on the standards that they've developed and the Main Street program they've developed. And that's what they're saying there. So I think what they're saying is design some templates for people in the downtown to use.
Okay, but action step 2 isn't tied to Main Street at all or downtown. It's under the just
Yeah.
reuse of existing buildings, which is
Yeah.
citywide is, if you look at it, but I mean, if we just add for Main Street, then that might.
Yeah, although we do talk about Main Street in the first action step, develop design pattern.
Mhm. I think that was action step 2 was their response to the existing private buildings, how to adopt.
The second one?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, just a general statement.
Yeah, yeah.
I would be inclined to scratch that one, just because I don't know if we're in a position to
I don't
develop
think so
design pattern
either.
books. I mean,
Okay.
and I think the first action step, working with Main Street, would almost by definition mean looking at the downtown, looking at the integrity of the buildings, and then coming up with design solutions, to make them
Okay.
more customer friendly and whatnot.
I would support taking out second action step. Third action step, I think, can be applied wherever through the community, just taking a notable.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the
notable,
awards?
Case. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
part of what our historic preservation
Annual
awards
awards.
do.
I think we have two really good examples that we could already put on the website with respect to that action step. Roosevelt and Crawford.
Mhm.
And they're very different. One's not even listed in the National Register. It's not a local landmark. The other one is, but both of them represent the adaptive reuse of historic buildings. And they're great case studies. They're great success stories. And I think we should be promoting both of those.
And have we already indicated to change the wording for the Main Street Cultural District to the Ames Main Street throughout the document? I can't remember if we did that last time, but I just see it again here, so it reminds me.
Okay. That, the group has made the change, or,
Yeah, they're called Ames Main Street now instead of the
Okay.
Cultural District.
okay,
Okay.
that's appropriate. Then the last item there is to consider Campus Town as a potential candidate for Urban Neighborhood Main Street District Program of Main Street, Iowa. And I don't know enough about it to
Yeah.
I don't
know whether that's an appropriate.
I don't think it's a high priority. I mean, if Campus Town wants to do that, Campus Town can do that. I don't know how successful they would be in there. That's a competitive process,
Okay.
getting Main Street status, and so I don't think that should be one of our priorities.
So take out the action step? Or,
I would say scratch it.
okay.
Mhm.
Anybody object?
No.
Go to objective C, to explore local incentive opportunities for historic preservation, as in a TIF or a facade improvement program. Action step, to continue the grant and tax abatement programs for urban revitalization. That's what you were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Priority.
Basically leave that. Since facade improvement program is listed, should we, and isn't addressed as an action step, should there be reference to it?
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, the objective is to explore, but then the action step is to continue.
Yeah,
Those don't seem at odds somehow, but
Maybe we just continue to explore.
well, but it's a existing program,
yeah.
And
and the facade improvement program's an existing program, which we're gonna,
but it's not based on historic preservation, actually.
well, but it's.
Yeah, but I mean, just so you know.
It's a
Yeah.
tool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could have an action step in there for it, but, and you know where it says continue the grant and abatement, tax abatement programs for urban revitalization? The tax abatement programs for urban revitalization don't apply to historic properties in
Mm.
Ames. Yeah,
Okay,
so maybe we should say instead like the, state and federal tax incentive programs.
Yeah, the objective is local though.
Oh, yeah, it does say local, okay.
So take it out?
so you're saying the grant program does apply, or, and the tax abatement doesn't, or?
Well, the tax abatement, we don't have any, we don't have any urban revitalization districts that include those historic properties. Now, the grants, there's no local grants right now for historic properties. Not that there couldn't be at some point, but there's not right now.
So explore.
Well, I was going to say, or consider,
Maybe consider. since we don't-
since there are programs, but they aren't being applied to.
They're not
historic
particular
properties.
to,
Inclusion.
Yeah,
okay.
Pursue if available.
okay. And then I would say the facade improvement program, it would be consider its use for historic. Maybe it's consider each of them for usefulness for historic preservation or something.
Appropriateness or adaptability or something, yeah.
Because one of the things we have sitting there is a proposal to add a historic preservation specific program to the facade program
Okay,
that's to be presented to council tomorrow night,
okay.
or a request for them to consider it from Main Street. So I think that might address the awkwardness of the wording right now, as well as just targeting those two that could have potential but aren't currently set up to. The facade program currently can do historic preservation, but isn't targeted for that. Any objection? Okay. Objective D, to provide current information concerning preservation grants and financial incentives. And the action step is to develop pertinent data and links for additional information on the city website alongside local model projects if available. And I think certainly movement toward this was accomplished as part of the rework of the
Education.
website.
Yeah.
I don't know if it fully accomplishes what was intended here, but I think it's still an appropriate.
Yeah. I'd say here or under the education goal.
Yeah, a lot of the things under this one seem to have been somewhat addressed in other places.
Yeah,
Objective E says to recognize the importance of preservation tourism for Ames and support efforts to promote it. The action step is to encourage interested parties to develop a coordinated tourism strategy for Ames with a role for historic preservation in that effort.
I would, under the objective, I would change the language from preservation tourism to heritage tourism.
Okay.
That's just the standard expression. And then maybe add, under the action step, a coordinated heritage tourism strategy.
Okay, so add the word heritage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ray, over the last 10 years, has that been addressed or?
For a tourism strategy based on preservation,
Heritage?
not other than, the brochures that you've seen,
Okay,
like
walking
Old
tours
Town,
and stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
And downtown.
Okay,
Yeah.
since I'm not fully aware of what has happened over the last 10 years.
Right.
Okay.
And I think we need it are we on objective F? Or
Yeah, we'll go.
okay, I would say partner with businesses in downtown Ames, campus town, Iowa State University. I mean, that's the biggest draw to Ames. We need to include them here, I think.
Okay.
And here again, I wouldn't, maybe we don't have to call it out, but Prairie Rivers of Iowa, the nonprofit, is a logical partner here as well.
Just for her on the minutes, I'll read the objective. Partner with businesses in downtown Ames, Campustown, and other business communities and tourism efforts beyond Ames to explore branding, promotion, products, marketing, and other economic advantages associated with the Lincoln Highway as a historic corridor across Iowa and its attraction to the touring public. And so the proposal was to add ISU into the list of people to partner with. As well as reference to Prairie, what was it, Prairie?
I was forgetting.
Prairie Rivers,
Prairie
Iowa.
Rivers.
Prairie Rivers of Iowa, and also we also might want to mention silos and smokestacks, that National Heritage Area
Okay,
group. I think they're based in,
Waterloo.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. But I think it includes Story
Yeah,
County, if I'm not
it
mistaken.
does. Okay. That gets us through it.
Wondering, I don't know about you guys, I lose track of where we are and what we've done. And
Yeah,
is there any way we could, after you've made the changes, could you maybe send us a copy of the amended section here, and just so we have something to reference? Because
sure.
we have an opportunity to go back to this. I mean, I don't know.
Right,
if
yeah.
I want to sit
The
Now,
at
you'll
new-
probably want to,
8:00 at night.
yeah, see the changes that you've
Yeah.
made and then, see if you want to make those changes or not.
Well, and
Yeah.
there may be some words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's more wordsmithing to do probably.
Yeah.
I think there's room to consolidate here, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so, yeah, I can have something for you next time.
That's
Okay.
what I'm hoping.
This is similar sometimes.
Okay, we're set that aside. Look forward to a draft. Item 6 is 2020 Historic Preservation Awards Program.
Yeah, if you want to continue with the awards program, typically what we do is we send out a press release here in the next few days and notify neighborhoods and send them the application form, encourage people to apply. Sometimes we get a response, sometimes a better response than others, but share. So that'd be the step between now and the next meeting. And then I'll have to look back and see what we do for February. Sorry, I know there's a certain due date in February. I think it's after the next meeting.
I think the due date on the website said the 20th of February.
Oh, okay. Have we got it on there already?
I think that was this year.
Okay, maybe Eloise put it on there.
Okay.
The application's still the previous year, but
Okay, well, it'll be around that same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I came in to say we
Okay.
needed to talk about it because
Right.
I've seen it on the website. but
Okay.
I didn't notice it in the.
So we'll get those things done as long as we know you want to continue with the awards program.
We do, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it fits very well the show notable examples.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Do we have these on the previous winners? Do we have them on the website?
I don't think so.
mm-mm.
Yeah, that
No,
would be another
Yeah.
thing to do. And
Yeah, it would be, and it would be helpful probably to people in thinking of what they could nominate to look back and see
Mhm.
things that have been recognized. Commission comments. The one I had asked, looking at the preview of the council meeting tomorrow, saw that there was a correspondence to the council from Ames Main Street asking for an expansion of the facade program and asking that a specific category be made for a specific component for historic preservation improvements, which also there said that the Historic Preservation Commission should be brought in on a case-by-case basis for any projects that are submitted under that category. So I just, for a heads up, wanted people to be aware that this is, the correspondence has been sent to the council, and tomorrow I'm assuming they'll probably refer it to staff for,
I think so. Yeah, it's in their non-agenda packet, so it's not on the agenda, but at the end of the meeting, they may do that.
so. And it sort of fit in with, we had talked about possibly seeking some kind of contact with them since the downtown is now a designated historic district. It seems appropriate, so apparently the two things are coming together somewhat.
Mhm.
Other comments from commissioners? Okay, Ray, staff comments?
Nope, nothing at this time.
Then I think we're ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We certainly can use it. Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.